So David mentioned that he'd like to have an item to, I don't know if it's our action or,
Later, we'll do that later.
okay, but let's just run through what the,
We can do it later when it comes up. We'll get at it when we get to the county numbers.
okay. Um, Okay, Bryce has sent us a very helpful format I found to look at our budget warrant articles or the way they appear. Were there any other items that we wanted to have on the agenda for tonight? Clear that David doesn't want to do it now, but I just want to put it,
Or do you want those on?
I just wanted to say,
Well, that's under new business.
I
If it came to new business, that we can put this new business, but
okay, I just,
we don't have any agenda.
no, we don't.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say, that that's a new business item, although we've talked
Fine.
about it several times.
Right, well, we talked in the past about the county tax, just Eric, you weren't here when Lloyd brought it up briefly, but with the county tax and try to break it up, but it's gonna mean more than just having them say, go ahead and do it. It's going to be forced to vote, so that, the word that came back through from the county was that it has to go to the people in the county, which I don't understand, because the budget never went to the people of the county.
Yeah.
It went just to the county board and then to the towns as a bill. But they say that to change the way the payment would come in has to be a vote of the taxpayers in the county. So a good thing would be if we could have a motion that goes to them, that we made it, whatever it is, recommendation, goes to them, then they can maybe put it on the November ballot with maybe other county business, I don't know, but evidently there are other towns obviously are being impacted and are concerned about this. Anyway, we can bring that up later.
Okay, well, are there other items that people would like to add on them to the agenda? Okay, do you wanna,
Yeah, so I think I put this, the warrant articles together, basically looking for your guys' recommendation for when I do the warrant to have, your guys' vote on it. So this is just a simpler form, essentially exactly what's gonna be in the town meeting warrant. So,
I had sent you a note and I just have a correction on page 2.
yeah,
I think the fire department sum is $10,000 high.
I mean, the total added up.
The subtotal, yeah. Because each item is the same as last year, except for one that's 5,000 more, but the total is 15,000 more.
Okay, so equipment should have been 26 instead of 16, and then that would come out at the 87.
Okay, so
So
maybe
the-
that's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
So the item is incorrect.
yeah, just on this document here, but I have in my notes that the fire department, they came in and asked for an extra $15,000 this year for oxygen packs.
Oh,
You remember?
I do,
When
yeah,
they
I
came
do
in to do
remember.
The number's the same though, the number from where we budgeted and the number on here. Is it the numbers
It's,
inside are different?
That's-
So when
that's
you're
right.
looking at the equipment line, it says 16,000.
Oh, it didn't add
That
up to
should-
add the
yeah.
numbers.
That should be 26.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, but the bottom number is.
The
correct.
bottom number is correct. yes.
Awesome.
Okay, okay.
I was gonna say, it matched this number over. there.
Yes, it did. Yeah, because I got that right in front of me.
So I don't know if you want me to read off and we go down through, and if there's any questions on it, we'll, decide if we'll base it off the subtotal or break it down. I don't know how you guys want it.
What we've done in the past, it would be like the article where the article. These aren't numbered, but the first article on the
Yeah,
general
yeah.
administration, the amount is $354,268. How do you vote? Those in favor, those opposed, and you note it.
Mhm.
If it's all, it's just approved. If it's not, we note 4-1 or
Yep.
3-2, whatever.
So I can catch up.
Yeah.
Has the select board reviewed this and this is their recommendation?
Select board is supposed to be here tonight. Mhm.
Well, they've reviewed it in a different format.
Yeah.
This is just the format I put forward, essentially what's gonna be.
Yep.
So
But they
they've
have-
reviewed the
But they
numbers.
haven't taken action.
But we haven't taken a vote for each.
That's
so-
correct.
So
They
they
were
would-
waiting for our recommendation.
If they could do the same, what's happened is they do the same vote. Typically together, but they could do it separate.
Mhm,
So it would be registered the same way.
right. Yeah, I
So
was
Brett-
just hoping
think
that we would
Bryce-
all have a discussion tonight, but
Okay,
I thought we could. I mean, that's why I mentioned it. Select board meetings have been handled. They've been going without being recorded anyway, but that's fine. We can do it this way. It's more legitimate.
but I mean, I just always think it's helpful when the whole select board and the budget committee are together, and then we could go through each line item and have that final vote on there. So do have one question on the first warrant, the general administration. Do we know yet if I'm just, we put one item in for town manager salary and, but that's if we have somebody in that role right from day one. I haven't been involved in the hiring committee.
The board put that in, so that's why we as a board have agreed to it.
So I didn't know, are you involved in the hiring committee?
No.
No, you're not.
Teresa's on that committee and I hear a little bit about it. She thinks they're about to make a recommendation.
Do we act on
I
the
think Carol's on
recommendation of
Committee too.
Oh.
The board recommended
I
the
don't know if
80
she's on
back
it.
along. This is an earlier meeting we were at.
Yeah.
We had 60. The board came in and bumped it to 80, saying that, well, we want some leeway depending upon where the committee comes in.
Yeah.
Which we agreed as a group at the time that that wouldn't be a bad thing.
Mhm.
And if they don't bring somebody in and say they hire a administrative assistant in lieu of a manager, it
Mhm.
gives them some money, plus
Okay,
it would give some money that would kick into surplus, which we're pretty much out of. Every time I look around, we're out of. So there would be a benefit there if things didn't go one direction. If you've read the paper, 80 is gonna be a tough job to find somebody.
Mhm.
Didn't we vote the other day to accept the recommendation that we go with the state's approach to this thing? According to state law?
The town manager plan, you
the
mean?
town manager plan.
Yeah. I don't know what they call it.
Oh, have you made that decision already?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure we have made that decision. at
That's the
time.
end goal, but it's all, the timing of it is pretty poor where we're so
timing.
close to town meeting.
oh,
We can't put it on town meeting. warrant.
Right, so we'll just
Oh,
move it forward.
Yeah,
okay.
So why I was just thinking of that is that if we weren't planning to hire a town manager until later in the year, could that number go down a little bit?
Well, I'm
That's-
It'd be wonderful if it could.
I'm persuaded by the logic that
My concern is that we've come up short on the other end.
And I guess is it a case that if we didn't hire a town manager for another 6 months, that we might incur some other administrative costs somewhere else because of that?
Oh, yeah, we've got that,
So
so,
maybe this would help cushion that.
One other question I had on that number, when we get down to the social security and Medicare and those things. Are the figures that are in here for that, assuming there's a town manager for 80,000?
Correct.
Yeah.
We went through that.
it's a formula.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a formula, looking at that, yeah,
Okay, but it's already in,
We did cover it. right,
okay.
Yeah.
previously.
yeah.
You're right, though, Eric. There may be a need for an assistant or somebody to come in and help out at some point. It gives a little something instead of being tight.
I'm just looking at that bottom, number where, when I'm looking at all of that,
52,000.
354?
I see that a mill rate that's up by 2.4.
Oh, right, but I'm
mills
just saying
and-
in this one category.
Yeah,
So do we want, I will just read, shall the town vote, you guys, if like. For example, you want to discuss town manager salary, you hone in on that, and then at the end, or. Is that what we want to do? And then at the end of this all, we can discuss the other documents I have
Okay.
for the
When we
mill
get-
rate
When we get
and,
to the back of it, right?
okay,
Okay, well,
so I think. We'll just start like we haven't
Okay.
talked already. So shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $354,268 for general administration? And I think you guys can have discussion and if you recommend it or
I
not.
mean, I think we discussed it.
I think we've talked about most of these things, that,
Okay.
I wasn't sure about that, you know, how we had thought about the 80,000. But I remember, I know we talked about it, I just wanted to,
We call a vote.
We have a vote.
I'm looking at,
I think you two don't vote,
we're just looking for the recommendation from the budget committee, yay or nay.
right? And is Carol with us?
She's not on here.
Okay, okay. Are there any, does anybody have any questions they wanna? No. Okay. So the budget committee, yes or no, yes,
Individually, it's an individual vote, yes.
right,
Through the whole, just for that subtotal. Right?
That budget committee recommends pass.
Yes.
If it was not all in favor of the budget committee recommends pass, vote for the.
Yes, exactly. No, I got that, so
Okay.
I'm following. Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $1,850 for elections and hearings? Any discussion?
all in favor?
Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $14,435 for health and human services?
All in favor?
So moved.
Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $87,451 for the fire department budget category for the following budget lines with an unexpended balance to carry forward to miscellaneous fire equipment capital reserve fund?
I'm still, I mean, I know we talked about this with the fire department, but it does seem like a fairly big percentage jump.
I know that's been in there since pretty much near the beginning. I think Taylor had come and the discussion was. I think he was looking to put it in the equipment reserve and where he knew he was gonna need it this year.
Right,
That's why we put it here.
And the air packs hitting this year and then they back off another year.
Yeah,
right, and I think,
and this rolls into that miscellaneous reserve anyway. So the thought was to just kind of put it front and center. This is what it's for.
yeah, yeah. But where I hesitated was, one, I thought the line items were correct and the total was wrong, but when I added up the fire, if we spend the $75,000 or put the 75,000 into the capital reserve, which is a $25,000 increase over last year, and we increase this by $15,000. That's $40,000 for the fire department of increase. And I don't know quite the best way to handle that, but we did talk with them about this. This need seemed real and the other will be real someday. So.
I mean, I think the budget committee can recommend a different amount if that's the case, rather than just voting it down. But
Well, at this point, we're not acting on the capital reserve item, just.
Right,
We're
Yeah.
just trying to do that on the budget itself.
right. I'm just trying to think about,
And you made that correction of 16 to 26.
Yeah. That was just in this document.
Yeah, okay. Just didn't want to carry on to another. document.
Yeah, no, this was just me free typing from, so I must have hit a one, but in my other documents, it's 26. so.
Oh,
yeah. Vote on this 87,451.
Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate 36,500 for assessing?
And can you just remind us?
That's.
I remember that the 8,000 is because we missed several years.
Yeah, each year we should be paying 1,000 to cover our updates, you know, when parcels are split off, et cetera, and. That is the costs of 7 years of updating that we need to do that.
Yeah, and,
that's-
and the quarter review is at a similar gap from,
Well, last year there was, or this, there was no quarter review last year because we had the reevaluation. So that's
Okay,
why
okay,
that's the
okay,
0 for
okay.
last year.
Oh. Okay, all in favor?
Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $12,485 for animal control? And it is, because the subtotal is cut off to the next page.
All in favor?
Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $47,962 for code enforcement and land use board support?
All in favor?
Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $61,857 for public safety?
All in favor?
Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $435,153 for roads?
And this is not including the road
Paving.
reconstruction, the paving
Right.
and road reconstruction, which comes later.
This is about $25,000 more, right, than what we did last year.
And just as I was reading that, I was struck, and I remember we talked about it, but I can't remember why the calcium fluoride is 3 times as much.
Just the cost
That's what the,
increase.
that's what the bid was.
Yeah, yeah,
Or this
Or
is
with-
MMA,
KB call.
KB call, okay. And the brush tree removal was one of the big increases.
Yeah, because we,
That
with
last-
the storms we've been spending over, it seems.
All in favor of this?
Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $120,197 for transfer station and landfill?
All in favor?
Shall the town vote to
You
raise and
don't do
appro-
this one.
what?
The outside agencies we leave alone. There's no recommendation on those.
Oh,
We've never done recommendations on those because those are handled by the public.
Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $78,473 for recreation?
All in favor?
Shall the town vote to raise and appropriate $20,080 for land and buildings?
And can you remind us why we had forgotten to put the money in for the new town office last year?
You have to ask my predecessor on that question.
Oh, okay. Oh, but there wasn't an item for.
Yeah, there was nothing, so we've been kind of scrambling where we can cover those costs for this year.
Yeah,
We
okay,
didn't really have, and even the 6,000 we would typically budget for rent got taken out, so We were kind of,
Oh,
There's
oh,
nothing there.
there's nothing there.
okay, okay. So what are the basic items in the 10,000?
That was, this figure was more from Bruce. Utilities, electrical, splitting a lot of costs with the fire department.
Oh, okay,
And we could come in under that, you know, we really don't know where we haven't been there a full year. We switched from oil heat to propane, so we really don't know how that's gonna fluctuate the bill, so we're.
okay,
And when we estimated, that was kind of a nice figure for
Okay.
me and Bruce.
And I think the way you present it in the meeting when it comes up is the fact that we are going to a real budget. These are real, we're trying to put money in line items where they will be spent instead of just grabbing money
Yeah.
to cover things as they come up.
Correct.
And the town office does incur a lot of expenses, so this needs to be funded instead of borrowing it from something else. So it's a transparency issue.
And we may find that where we share all of our costs with the fire department, we might come in under this.
And then
but-
we tweak it next
Yeah,
year.
it seemed like we based off the 6 months we had been there when Bruce and I had talked, and we were roughly around 5,000 we had spent. So
okay,
that was the basis of that figure.
And
okay.
and I can't remember if we discussed this or not, but theoretically, unless you're increasing operating costs at the fire station, shouldn't there be an offsetting reduction in the fire department expense?
There should be help there, yeah.
I would think, yeah.
Okay,
But that hasn't been reflected in what's been budgeted.
right,
So I think they have they have a different budget for that.
The fire department?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
also think
they,
they're waiting to see how, give it a year to play out, and
Yeah,
see
well,
where the costs are.
But are their operating building expenses in this item or are they? in the
No,
fire
they
department
keep-
operating budget?
theirs is
There's
With-
there.
when they're operating that we voted on operations.
that's where. That's where they're part of the
Yeah.
north of the two fire
Yeah,
stations.
plus whatever else they do for operations. Obviously, running the fire department is probably a smaller portion of that 29,000, but
Okay.
so now we're splitting and.
Yeah, so are they gonna come up with a site-specific estimate of, or are they just gonna continue to run it as?
That's what Taylor had given me. I'm thinking once we get a full year through and really have a good feeling on exactly what our bills are gonna look like, we could probably tweak that to.
Yeah. Yeah, so that we
Like
can
this.
say they're sharing and here's what we're paying and here's what the fire department is asking us to pay for
Yeah.
them. Because it's all coming from our taxpayers. It's-
Contingency.
We haven't voted on
Oh,
it.
you
Yeah,
never
we're
voted
good
on
for
the buildings?
recommendation.
Oh, okay.
Send the landed buildings.
Right, I got lost. Oh, okay. No. So I'm just doing this out loud. If we take out the 10,000, it's up from about 8 to about 10. Okay, land and buildings. All in favor? Miscellaneous contingency, oh,
Shall the town vote to raise an appropriate 3,000 for the contingency?
all in favor?
Shall the town vote to raise an appropriate $696,800 for capital reserve accounts?
This item includes the paving item. Do you want to defer action on this until we've discussed that or?
I think it's there's one more. There's one more after this, right?
There is one.
One more meeting or one more?
No,
One more article.
Do we want to just skip and come back or just deal with it now?
Yeah, why don't we skip and come back, because Eric wasn't here when we when we discussed that, and I think Amy has been, and Bryce have been looking at some alternative ways to,
Okay, we'll just skip to the next one.
okay,
These are, shall the town vote to accept the following estimated revenues and transfers in the amount of $663,950 to reduce the 2023 tax commitment, thereby reducing the amount to be raised from property taxes.
Of course.
Do we have
Except all
to,
the,
Why is it less? It's really, we're predicting less, huh?
That was my thought, just because I think it hurts us in the long run when we over project, that we're projecting more revenue and we actually aren't seeing it coming. I took the last 3 years and averaged them when I came up with these numbers, and there were some that just they were hitting under every year, and I, just felt we should.
Yeah.
We
we're
want
trying to-
let's be a little
accuracy,
more reasonable.
transparency, and when
Right.
when you're knocking your tax commitment down, but
Not
if you're
really,
overspending and not taking in as much as you think, then you're not doing. real
So
well.
this is more realistic.
This is what I think it is.
That's good.
and I think we've heard that excise taxes, income has been lower than,
A little bit. I think during COVID, there was quite a boom of new car buying, and it seems to fizzle out a little bit.
It makes it hurt a little more though. I mean, when you look at. the
Oh, for
bottom
sure,
line.
yeah, you're not,
But I'd rather,
Maybe we just
I'd
have-
rather be straight
we
and
have to-
hurt than to
we have
have,
to
well,
encourage
missed
more
it.
yard sales. Get that yard sale line item up, so.
so I believe in fiscal year 2022, revenues were up by 6%. And expenses were down by 1.99%.
now revenues are down by 6% up estimatedly.
Yeah, the
Well-
audit isn't done for 23, so
Still.
I don't have those numbers yet.
my findings for the revenue in 22 was. Just another example is we estimated even 100,000 for the. State cost sharing, where is it on here? It's the big, the state revenue sharing. We estimated 100,000 when it was really 158 that we should have put. They posted on their website, so that it's just another one of those. Really
Moving
want to
part.
try to hone in for.
Right.
Estimate. So that's just where the thought was. I didn't like to see it down, but. Our state revenue dropped quite I mean, you'll see on this last page. This current year, we're in 184, 378, and. Their projection, or what they had given us, was 152, 214, so there's quite a hit right there.
That's what they had given us.
And
Oh,
yeah,
so it was the other way last year. We
Yeah, we-
projected it high, got less.
Right.
yeah,
So now we're projecting more on the.
well, we
accurate
projected low, we had 100,000 when we should have went.
side.
Their website says what they're gonna give us, so, and
We
that's
should've-
what my point was, we actually got $50,000 more.
More.
Could be deceiving though, if we, would have put that in here. But
Yeah.
anyways,
This
that's
is better.
that's what the hope is, that even though it's lower, it's kind of honed into
Okay.
being accurate.
Okay, so I guess we need to vote on that item. Recommend,
And then back to the capital reserve.
right,
Does the budget really need to vote on intergovernmental, or is that different? That's just,
That's,
We'd all recommend to have less payments to the county and the school, right? No,
I just
those
didn't know.
are bills, no.
I am,
There is no.
I copied this
Actually,
right
that doesn't
from
even go in-
previous.
That doesn't even go on the article. There is no article for the school.
Oh, really? I
No.
thought we did it by
You vote on a school budget
on a separate vote.
on a separate vote. That's it.
separate vote.
at the election, right?
I got this from,
Those are bills now. Used to be we budgeted, them, but now it's just. That's why I'll give them that later. Anyway,
so we'll hit the roads next and then we can talk
hit the
about
road,
everything
yeah,
else.
hit the road, Jack.
See you, okay.
Okay,
Okay, so shall the town vote to raise and appropriate 696,800 for capital reserve accounts? So you'll see that big increase, which was recommended by the road committee. It's been brought forward to both the select board and the budget committee.
And we did talk about it when Eric wasn't here last
Correct.
time. Um,
And they are going to, they will present it, the road committee will present it at town meeting, what the plan is, they will, what's going to happen, why the money's risen so much. The short of it, Eric, I thought you weren't here.
We discussed it some
Some
prior.
before, right.
Yeah, so I'm
But it
aware
was
of what.
mainly because we're catching up from last year.
Right.
We've already got work that's going to be happening. And unfortunately, we don't have money to pay for it. So we've got to catch that up and we've got to get on track to take care of our roads. The committee was like, they did a rating, a survey on our roads and how poorly the survey came out. There were a lot of roads that were
not in good shape.
extremely poor. And the second half, which would be, you could look at the second half being the raise from 300 to 600,000. Is to go after some of those other roads and get them started, get some work started, because number one thing the taxpayers. That recognize in town government, the number one thing is the roads. They don't recognize the school, all they recognize the school is it being very costly. But when they drive over the roads, that's something they recognize.
Yeah,
And they say, hey, my town's doing it or they're not doing it. People have been pretty upset by the roads lately, so.
I think the challenge was back when we tried to set a system in place and move down off borrowing and more on pre-funding. We kept the annual payment the same year after year. And we were going 300,000, 300,000, 300,000, and we weren't acknowledging that 300,000 3 years ago isn't gonna,
Go as far.
well, 300,000 this year isn't gonna go as far as 300,000 went then, so that was a gap in our budget committee thinking, recommendations.
Costs,
Everybody missed it.
costs were going greater than what the actual product outlay could withstand, and now we've actually cycled back. The work that's being awarded for this year already is to take care of those roads that we started with 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And when we did those, the projection was 10 years, and we're 3 years, well, they're 8 years ago, so we're 2 years short already. And they're falling apart.
But
If we let them go any further, it'll get to the point where you're gonna have to put a whole lot more
So
in.
this is just an engineering question. Was 10 years a realistic projection?
Talk to 3 contractors, they'll give you 3 different answers, but
Oh,
I mean, roads, everybody says roads in Maine are the worst, that, you know, they're a case study in themselves, you know?
yeah,
yeah.
And just look around, I mean,
Wait,
with the heat and the frost we have and everything else, you can't afford to build a road to last more than 10 years.
but I mean, I guess the question is, is 10 years possible? Or should we be thinking more like 8 years?
So it's 10-year cycle, it's not terrible, put it that way. On a lot of back roads, 10 years you can go. A lot of our back roads have been way more than 10
Yeah.
years. Some of them are pretty decent.
Just so I understand this though, is the recommendation from the road committee. That 600,000 a year is a sufficient amount. A stable amount, at least at current dollars.
No, it's not. No, that isn't. The 600,000 was to get back to square one. And they're predicting next year we could be 400,000.
All right, so this includes some catch up. It's not
A
just.
lot of catch up. It's 50% catch up. And then moving forward. With any saving grace, there may be something left, probably not. But there's a lot more road than there is money.
Well, we're looking for, so in spring 2025, we're not twiddling our thumbs. We have some capital to do something.
To go to work.
Yes, but if we don't have this extra 300, or the road committee's thoughts were, if we don't have anything extra than the 300 we typically do. We're gonna be in that cycle of we have to wait all spring.
We're
when we
behind
should
the eight
be
ball again.
paving
Right.
To
Right,
hop
but
in.
so I think the question I was trying to get to, and that Eric was nosing around too, is if our roads were in reasonable shape, meeting the usual annual, whatever they need.
This number would be a lot lower.
Yeah, but what would it be?
Well,
Is my
they
question,
didn't, I mean, they
Would it-
didn't hold on to that
No,
specific
okay.
number.
but I
But
don't.
we all
didn't-
know that it would be a lot lower. hypothetically, 500 is probably 400 to 500, let's say, is probably a pretty good stable number.
So that's what I'm wondering, is 450 what we should be talking about
Right.
as a plan for next year, and then 450 plus
Well, I
the
don't think we can get
inflation?
into, we're looking at this year, we're not looking at next year. Lot
Yeah,
can
but
happen,
we're
lot
trying,
can happen
Well, I
between them.
we're trying to have
With their,
we're trying to have a system that works.
well, they're trying to come up with a plan, so we'll be able to have a concrete number for the next 8 years, 10 years.
Right,
That's the
but,
goal,
but,
but we haven't got there
but
yet.
what we've learned is it's not gonna be the same number for those 8 years, and that's what I thought Eric was leading toward is 450. If we were at 450 now and had been at, 425 last year and 400 the year before, would we be about the right place?
You're saying that the roads committee, the roads committee had a presentation to the town meeting.
They're gonna have they're gonna have an explanation of this number, what is going to happen, where this number is going, okay?
Yeah,
And just, I'll give you the quick version, they haven't finished it yet, but the quick version is, half of it is gonna go to what's already been awarded that we don't have money to do, which would have been this year's. So it's a catch-up. So now you've got the other 300,000 is going to go into protecting the roads that we're putting money into now, rebuilding like Innis Ridge Road, I mean, and then heading back to the roads that are in complete disrepair. According to the plowing contractor, almost impassable. Green True Road. When's the last time you went up Green True Road, right? It's
On my
horrible.
bicycle.
Huh?
On my bicycle,
It's pretty bad on a bicycle, isn't it?
yeah.
Strickland Ferry Road. I mean, there's some of these is to go after these roads, and it'll be in their plan to show that, okay, with this extra money, we're able to capture X number of miles here, here, and here.
Yeah, the only reason I'm asking the questions is if we think, once we have caught up with the backlog with the long-term stable annual expense is gonna be something like, say it's 500,000. Then when we're talking about the possibility of bonding some portion of this, in my mind, it would only make sense to bond that piece that is the catch-up piece, if you will, the piece
Above and
that's
beyond.
above and beyond what we think the annual expense is going to be.
Right.
That's why I'm just trying to get a handle
Yeah.
on what that is.
We had talked about being, actually 500 being the magic number. Because of the way costs of everything and everything's going on, and you could do X number of miles for 500,000.
Yeah.
To get to that point. The thing is, you had to scare it, you had to go to the big number to begin with to get caught up. And what's the best way to handle it? Is it, I mean, and as you can see, and maybe for the bonding side of it or not, I mean, it's if you bond something, you still have a bond payment.
Right.
So that's gonna end up going on our debt service. We're gonna add another line of debt service.
Mhm.
So the bond payment, in addition to, let's hypothetically, instead of 500, let's say the number was 450, right? The bond payment's what, 72,000? So that 80,000 of that roughly, now you're at almost at 6 anyway. And the 6 isn't gonna be a year in, year out, it's a one time.
Right, and that's what I was just trying to get a handle on. It doesn't make sense in my mind to pay through a bond an amount that is gonna be a recurring annual expense. Because you're just pushing costs out and out and out, and you're never catching up.
We've proven that in the last 7 years.
Right.
Well, how do you know that you would have enough people to do that work during the year too? That's the other thing. You can try to, try to get the contractors who can, that let's say they can do it but you don't know if they'll even be able to finish that work during the year.
If you start early in the year, they can do it. I mean, that's never been an issue with road construction, and these guys, put bids out, right? You got bids on stuff, so.
Yeah.
Well, I think also one of the things is that if we allocate money for something that we're already getting bids for the end of the summer, but then we're able to send bids out for the spring, that maybe we could use this extra money for those early summer bids so that we could get going in the spring.
And
And then-
actually get a better price,
and get-
because they want that work on the spring.
Yeah, they
okay.
want, yeah, and they all have to wait till
Oh.
town meetings
Okay.
unless those towns have set aside money for that.
Maybe
It's
they,
my
The
understanding.
real flip side is if you pave all your roads in June, you get another year's worth of nice ride. If you pave them in October, you get a month's worth of nice ride. True story, but, and that's what happens. We've always been on the end of the hook. We've been late in the year. Hurry up and get it done.
So I think you'll see a document I gave you there was a schedule for if it were to be bonded, and there's the tax impact. And now that I look at this, the financing, the paving actually wouldn't hit till fiscal year 26, so 25, 26, so.
Oh, actually doing the
Yeah.
bond.
This route, their first regular payment wouldn't be due till July 15th, 2025.
Well, that's right, because we have to get this approved by town meeting, then we would do the bond in the spring, and then the first payment wouldn't be due till 2026.
It would bump it out.
Okay, so I can actually take that
Yeah, I need.
So do you take
dollar
the,
amount out of there, got it.
do you take the hit now or do you kick the can down the road again? I guess is the bottom line, right?
I'm sorry, Bryce, in this table,
Mhm.
how much are you assuming is bonded? The whole 600,000 or 300,000?
The 300,000 based off this chart,
Did you get this one?
Yes,
Sure, okay.
so that's just that first payment, which technically isn't due till the, not even.
right, I
Mhm.
got that.
And the bottom row, again, is exactly what it says, it's just that's the stabilized seniors, so just that. The increase they're gonna feel.
But that's not all, that's still kind of a misnomer because they've been paying part of that. It's not like it's gonna be hit with the whole thing. Cause they
Being
didn't,
Part of what?
the seniors on the senior
Oh.
impact,
They've been locked in at 18,870 this whole time, was my understanding, but I could be wrong.
but they're paying on the 1887, so you're only doing is the difference. between
Yeah,
that and
exactly,
this. It's not
exactly,
like-
correct.
Here you show the whole thing.
Yeah, correct.
So it sounds like the question we were getting to is. Do we want to bond do we want to think about bonding at the 300 level, or do we want to? It sounded like Eric was suggesting that, if we think this 450 is the stabilized, is what we should have been doing last year and next year, then maybe do we want to bond for a smaller amount of money?
Well, at some point, it becomes. I don't know, you got to
At
incur the
some point, it's
administrative
splitting
costs of issuing
hairs.
a bond for, $100,000, is it worth it?
Right,
And you've got the interest that you're gonna be paying on it.
Right.
And you've got it coming back again next year, you'd have to incur that another time. Plus the payment itself.
well, but hopefully by the next year, you'd be being
Back
a
at the
little,
500 level,
yeah, you'd be trying to,
but we wouldn't, we'd be 580,000 because debt service would be
Right.
the bond payment.
right,
Well, if we do go out to get the bond next fiscal year to get that money, we should still put in at least $2,000 for bond, legal costs. 'Cause that's how much it's cost in the past,
To get a bond, you pay the lawyer $2,000 to get a bond.
$2,000. Yeah.
We'd add that onto this, so 80,000 is about right. isn't it?
I said. Eat the 300,000 now, the additional 300,000, because that's basically catch up. And then next year, go after a bond.
I didn't quite get that. I didn't know how you think. Amy was saying. We do the bond next year.
So if we do if we get the money to do the roads next spring, it would be a bond that we would take out next spring, but the first payment wouldn't be due until fiscal year 26. So at town meeting, they would still be they would still be voting on whether or not to do that additional $300,000 bond. Because
But-
we would have to get permission
It
from the
wouldn't happen,
town.
but it wouldn't happen until next, let's say spring probably, right?
Yeah, you need to give yourself a month or two, probably. I don't know how long it takes to get the bond, but
I think they were talking in the meeting, weren't they talking about maybe getting that work done this fall or some of it,
Well, I
right?
know the work we're gonna be having done this summer, you know, the shim stuff we're doing, we need to
Cover it.
cover it, or we're just gonna peel the shim up when we, so that's the crucial part, so I
Right.
think that's how we had to figure that.
And what was the ballpark figure for that? For what you're hoping to do this summer?
300,000.
Yeah, it was three, that was right in.
That would- okay.
And then part of the second 300 was to cover that up. And then have some left over to do these other roads next spring.
Okay.
So really, the spring kind of is a little bit far out there. Most of this was going to happen very quickly.
Before spring.
but you would still need to get, you'd still need to get residents to vote on it at the town meeting. Because sometime during the year, you would be going for a bond, right?
Definitely,
Yeah.
bonded or not, you've
Yeah.
you've got to get their approval now,
Yeah.
whether it's done this fall or next spring.
Mhm.
Where Lloyd was confused, and I know why, is when you were talking about, well, if we get the bond in spring, it's not due until the next fiscal year. True, but it wouldn't fit this scenario to
Yeah.
get the work done.
We would get the money in fiscal year 25 for work that we wanted to do in fiscal year 25.
Correct.
But we wouldn't, the taxpayers would have committed to paying that money in 2026.
Some of it,
Well, yeah, one
One
bond
installment.
payment, one installment.
But that would mean. In 26.
Yeah.
You would have probably a $200,000 to $300,000 increase in the ongoing annual expense for paving. Plus the first bond payment, right? So
that is correct.
you're pushing the bubble out
Mhm.
to 26.
That's why we're looking at just do it right now, do it from taxes,
That's the trade-off.
and then come back next year, instead of coming back at 600, you come back at 450 or 5.
Oh, you mean put the whole 600
Yeah.
and not do the bond?
Not do the bond, put the whole thing in this year. Knowing that next year, when you come back, you're not gonna be asking for 600 next year, it's going to be considerably less.
I think one of the things that I have difficulty with is that the numbers that I'm looking at, $300,000. Additional 300 in roads is going to increase the mill rate by 2% or 10%, 2 mills or 10%.
No, it was 1 point something mils. The 300,000 is 1.34 mils. I thought they did it 2 different ways.
So I had to figure without any change, the mill rate would be typical, just 300,000 we budget every year, the mill rate would be 22.88. And then with that additional 300,000, I had a mill rate of 24.51.
That's
Yeah.
2306. 2451.
We've had some tweaks since that document with the county budget, so your
Okay.
numbers are gonna look a little different.
Okay. So you're,
So the difference,
it's 1 point, it's 1 point, it's
24.5.
0.68.
1.68, right? Yeah, it's under 2 mils, I knew that.
How much are you gonna borrow here?
Well, if we went to bond?
Yeah.
Well, that's the question, is on these numbers, they're talking about bonding the 300, but Eric has a good point, is
Yeah.
you don't bond the 300, but you bond the difference. So if we're doing that, you'd be bonding roughly between 100 and 150,000, correct, Eric?
Right. If you think that the ongoing recurring expense is gonna be a 450.
It's, yeah, it would be low.
So then how much are you gonna borrow when you go into the bond in the following year?
Well, you wouldn't have to,
With that,
you wouldn't go the bond route at all. And the bond mark, where's the bond? What was the bond at?
6.75.
Yeah, so it's a lot higher than it was last time we went down that route. what made it desirable then was it was a really good rate.
Yeah, before it was anywhere from 2.10 to 2.49.
Right. Huge difference.
Is off this time.
Say it again.
Our timing is off.
Right. We should have. Shouldn't have been doing 300, 300, 300, 300.
There's a lot of other issues that happen that affect this.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I
I
know.
mean, we're playing catch up, so we're really doing. We would not be having to worry about this if we weren't trying to catch up. But now that we've got caught up, once we get to that point, it'll be a lot easier. And by running a realistic budget and staying within your budgetary constraints, makes it more reasonable. And I think that's the explanation to the taxpayers, is that this is what we're doing going forward. It will not be this bad. Barring any county. Yeah.
But I think the weather last year and this year also really affected the roads, and I don't know, did we get any FEMA or
We're still waiting on it, but
offset that? So doesn't that take the expense out of what is of the town share and puts it over into another special fund, waiting for that
for
offset
them to kick
for
in.
them to,
Is we, I think we still have to front, I think it's anywhere from 15%, I think, and so like that May storm way back. A year and a half ago, probably now. I think we're getting 28,000 back, a portion of that's from the state, the federal government. The accounting for, I'm not. Bruce is on, I don't know how he's been handling that, if he wants to.
The other thing is, this is a year like this, we are reevaluating. We've got a lot of things that are coming at us at the same time, which is probably the best time to have huge changes. Is at the same time you reevaluate.
so my figure still isn't coming out with your figure. I'm still showing that the mill's going up 2.09 or 10%. And that's just with the 300,000. And if I put 600,000 in for roads, then I'm showing that it's going up by 17.92% or 3.72 mils.
You had it at 2288, right, Bryce? It was at 2288 and a 300.
With no change, and then it from 300 to 600.
It went to 2451. That's 1.63.
24. Well, I have 24.46, but that's not a big difference, but last year it was 20.74. So I have it.
So you're going from last year all the way to the maximum this year, or you?
Yeah, so
Right.
last year the mill rate was 20.74.
Right, and the projection here is either 2288 or 2451. We're looking at the difference between those two, not from last year's way back to last year.
I'm just trying to see how much the mill rate would
Increase.
go up.
Well, the whole
increase.
thing would go up from 2451 to back to 2450.
Yeah, so I'm seeing a 3.72 mil increase, which is almost 18%.
That's across the board, though. That's everything, including everything. That's the school, that's the county,
Yes.
that's everything.
Correct.
Right,
Yes,
right. So yes, that would be correct overall.
yeah,
That's not the 600 though. I thought we were just looking at the 600. The difference between 3 and 6.
no, I'm looking at the whole
impact.
budget.
Oh, the impact,
The
yeah,
whole
the
impact,
the
yeah.
impact's huge. This
Yeah.
without it's huge,
I'm just,
but we're
I'm-
also revaluating, so it won't be 3 mils. You know what I mean?
But the-
well, yeah, but I mean,
It'd be
who,
3 mils
whatever,
Equivalent, the,
It's-
the dollar amount
Will
will
be
be,
the same,
right. And that's what people really end up caring about.
right,
3.77.
Well, Dallas always used to say, well, this is you select board members' problem.
You did.
So that's, I mean, last year, that's about double. Last year, we went almost 2 mils.
yes,
So,
right, we went from.
and now we're going you know, yeah, it's a big jump, but it's not like,
Mhm.
it's not like you're going 377, you're going, the difference between the 187 and 377, so you're going about. It'd be about double the jump that you had last year to the year before.
What fraction of that is because of what the county budget is and what fraction of it is what the school is?
We just look at what the increase here, you can see right on our budget what the increase was on the municipal side. Total appropriations, municipal expenditures, 23.7%.
Yeah, so I got the RSU is 54% of the total budget and the county is 7%.
So it's 61%.
Let me see if I can-
Oh, Eric, you would raise the question about the wisdom of bonding for something as small as 100,000. Where would you draw a line, or could you draw a line and say where you think it might be worth doing and below which it might not be worth doing?
I don't think there's a magic number.
No, I'm sure there's not, but I just. Would bonding for 200,000 be a reasonable compromise? Says we'd be raising 400 ourselves. Borrowing 200, and that would give us a little bit of that. There's a pot that we could use early on if we need to.
200 a year or just 200?
I think 200 this year and hopefully not get back on the track of borrowing every year.
But I think we bite the bullet and do it this year. Do the whole 6 and then have it retract back, so it's less than, so you're not borrowing, you don't have that debt service hanging out there again for the next 4 or 5 years. Cause that's gonna hang there.
Right,
If you do it, put it behind us, you know, then you got these other attached, you know, I didn't realize legal was gonna be so high just to get a bond. The cost to get a bond is pretty
Exactly.
considerable.
yeah,
Even on a $200,000 bond, that's pretty high.
Mhm, about $2,000.
And that's a lot just to give to the lawyers. And what is the impact of that 150,000 itself really isn't that much when you get back to that difference.
Mhm.
It isn't gonna be as big of an impact as it would be looking at the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, I came into this, Jim, thinking that there was gonna be a much larger catch-up amount, if you will,
oh, okay,
Mhm.
and the recurring amount was gonna return to something that's more like what our current expense is.
oh,
But if that's not the case, then I personally don't see the wisdom in trying to bond this,
oh, okay,
because you're just pushing the bubble out,
right,
and you're gonna create a bigger shock down the road.
right. Well, maybe the thing to do is try to find some way to indicate that we'll be disciplined with the 600,000.
I think that's a true story.
But I think that
I
may be,
think that.
that may
I
be,
mean, that's-
that may be,
That's common sense. I mean, you're representing the people. You're not gonna just let it be fluffed away. It's earmarked. We've got a pretty good handle. The other guys in the committee have a good handle on what the cost projection is per foot. And you can measure this road and that road, and you can pretty much come to a ballpark, right? And you've got a manager who's gonna be on top of it, so that we won't be losing
Mhm.
the earmark money to go somewhere else, so.
Have the discussions in the committee, David, gotten to the point of actually developing a 5 or 10-year plan.
It's in the process.
Yeah.
Here again, all this stuff is new, it's just like these other committees.
Yeah.
It's a time thing, but it is definitely in the process. And that's why the grading factor, rating the roads, the grading
Yeah.
scale.
Yeah.
Came into play where to spend the other 300,000. And so, yes, the plan is to have this so that we can look it forward and say, okay, this is an area to look at.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some major hurdles ahead of us. Dexter Pond are roads that we don't even think about.
Yeah.
That is so damn narrow, it's dangerous.
Mhm.
And you're getting citizens that are building down there and it's getting more populated where it didn't used to be and
Mhm.
they have concerns and you get CNP has to come in and, you know, there's a lot of
Is that a
Moving parts.
town road all the way to the?
the bridge.
To the bridge,
Yeah, just to the bridge.
but after that.
So all these things are
Yeah,
taken,
I think it's
they
private.
can't do it with this little pot.
Yeah,
Right.
no, but I mean, it's a
But
town.
is it gonna stay at 600? No.
Say that again.
Is it gonna stay at that level? No, it would be reduced. It wouldn't come back at 600 year after year after year, hopefully, unless things go haywire.
Yeah, but I think somehow we have to. We will have to indicate to the town
The committee's supposed to do that.
that we're
Our
hoping.
our next meeting is, I mean, because it will essentially, this will go to the floor and it could get shot down if what the committee doesn't have present a plan that
Right,
seems
right.
like. You know,
Right.
thorough and, you know,
Right,
it's a big Band-Aid to rip off, but the roads are deteriorating pretty
Right.
quick.
right,
I think the thought is, so, you know, that's the goal. Cause obviously this point in the town meeting is gonna catch a lot of attention, I'm sure, so the road committee wants to be prepared to really present.
yeah,
Something to
Yeah.
the effect that it proves that
yeah,
that amount is warranted.
yeah. I mean, we've got the big increase for the fire truck.
Mhm.
And I know we deferred that last year, but we've got that in the same cluster. But,
If we didn't have to catch up, Eric, it wouldn't have been a big problem.
Right. So
You know,
I-
things would have slowed
Sure.
down. But people realize that and they can see it's a one bump in a, literally, no pun, bump in the road.
No, I don't think it's hard to make people understand that. Budgeting 300,000 a year, year after year after year, when the dollar's getting smaller,
that's a mistake,
costs are getting higher,
right?
and we're not keeping up.
Right.
The only question is, you know, how much of that 300,000 increase is a one-time event versus
Right.
what's gonna be recurring.
Right.
I would have going to include a graph of that variable.
Yeah.
So much per foot is what it was 5 years ago, it was today.
But that's a moving target too.
Culture, but.
Everything's
Right,
changing.
but that's what a graph helps you
the
understand.
graph is
Oh.
showing.
Right.
It was this, then it was this, then it was this.
Yeah.
It's not gonna stay, it's not gonna turn level.
Right.
I think,
The state's doing this, all the state highways too.
yeah,
All the state roads and bridges where we're gonna have. Oh, we shouldn't index it to inflation, we shouldn't do it, we'll just pretend it was fine, and one of these days, we're gonna get it in the state, and we're ahead of them.
yeah. Well, do we, kind of people thinking, do we wanna make a recommendation regarding a bond, or do we wanna recommend not?
I move that we recommend 696, 800, and we show a vote on it, like the others.
Without
Without a bond.
without a discussion of a bond?
Right.
Okay. I'll assume it's been seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor? Anything else?
That concludes the budget warrant articles. I know Lloyd had, the county number is shrinking little by little, day by day, so that's
Is it
good.
still shrinking?
A little bit.
It's shrunk,
I thought it shrunk
it's
a bit.
shrunk 9,000 more over the 33, so we're doing good.
But us is 9,000, or the whole county's 9,000.
No, us,
Our chair.
our share.
So I guess I want to bring up the motion that the board, the Town of Wayne Budget Committee. Make a motion that we request the county commissioners to allow us to make, incremental tax payments. Either in conjunction to our receiving taxes or twice a year.
Yep.
That's up for discussion. I don't think they'd go for our incremental tax because we're the different ones out of the whole count. I don't think anybody else does 3 payments. But if we ask for 2 payments instead of the one lump sum,
Yeah.
I think that would be a good indication to go back to the county commissioners with. And according to what Lloyd said earlier in the meeting was that they're saying that every budget committee for every town in the county needs to do the same thing.
Oh,
And every select board in every county and town in the county does the same thing.
And it has to go to a popular vote and everything.
And then for some, no, it goes to popular vote in county, which would be every town, right?
Every time.
But by, the county would bring it in, a
I
town would.
can't imagine if you clear the first 2 hurdles, that there would be a problem clearing the third.
Agreed, agreed.
I don't know why you have to go through it in the first
I
place.
don't either.
They gave us a number we have to pay. We didn't vote on that number. We had no discussion on that number, did we?
No.
Anyway,
Lloyd.
if that's what they'd like, I'll make the motion if we want to write it up, Bryce,
Yeah,
and,
So request the county commission to make incremental tax payments in either how we get our taxes or at least twice a year. Is that kind
That would be fine, because there are some towns that do get to. Both,
of twice?
covers all waterfront.
And does the request has to come from the town or does it have to come from the select board or?
Well, if you go to the select board and ask for the select boards to endorse it, and then then
Okay,
they send it to the commissioners.
so the budget committee can send it to
Request
the
that.
select board.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that, right?
Is this an area where KV cog could help us in organizing the other towns to take similar action?
That's what we do.
Good point, Eric, and we're members.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, we
They
are.
Yeah,
should be.
that's the kind of thing that I would
Central
expect them to
cog.
do.
Do you know a name there?
Yeah, I did know somebody.
I did know too. I don't know if he's retired now.
All right, what did I think of? Holy smoke. Oh, from the meetings, you get ideas, yes.
Does KB cog interact with the county commissioners or not?
I don't know, but I'll find out, and I think that at least would be a larger group,
Right.
and then we go to include all, there may be some towns that aren't members, I don't know. Good idea, good idea. I'll do that myself.
Was Joe Petrosky's reason for coming in this today, or was it something else?
He just had stopped by, he had brought that up, and he says it's state legislature that allows them to charge it all up front. Because he said in the past, they were having issues getting their funds,
Oh,
so that,
they couldn't collect out of the towns?
that's what he said. But he said, so the state legislature made it so that they could put it into law that they could collect right up front, one lump sum.
It's pretty hard when they haven't even appropriated it, to have to pay it.
Yeah, and a school payment. All in 1 month before we even see any.
Anybody?
Yeah.
so should we come up? Let's refine the language a little bit before we vote on it.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, I just have, the budget committee requests that the select board send a request to the county commissioner, see if it's okay to make incremental tax payments in either how the town collects taxes or at least twice a year. Or do you want it to be a little different than that?
I'm not sure what
I
the,
think that captures the intent.
Yes,
In the intent, okay. And then also, can KV cog request this on behalf of the towns or again?
So I can
well,
follow.
on behalf of all the towns in the county,
Or at least
Request
help
this
us
on behalf.
organize an effort among the other towns.
because I think it's gonna have to come from multiple towns.
Yeah.
Which, why wouldn't they?
right, it seems like something that would. People would say, of course, that makes sense. We
It's
get
not
our,
always the case.
I don't understand why the county has to sit on that huge pot of money for the entire year.
Oh, just said they're really flush too. Be nice.
would you read it one more time, Amy?
Oh, sure, gotta get back in there.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's it. The budget committee requests that the select board send a request to the county commissioners
Yes.
to see if it is okay to make incremental tax payments in either how the town collects taxes or at least twice a year.
I guess I would just say that in the letter that goes. that
Yeah.
Rather than say, would it be okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Just-
yeah.
well, no, I
We
mean.
recommend you change your.
Right.
Yeah,
And I might change the first request to recommend, the budget committee recommends that the select board tells the county.
Overstep our powers.
The budget committee recommends that the select board go on,
Issue a request to the county commissioners.
issue a request to the county commissioners
That they change the way.
that they change the way that taxes. are
County taxes are
that
paid.
county taxes are paid
yeah, that's just the,
From a single
from a
lump
single
sum payment.
lump
Either
payment,
following our blah, 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 right?
either following our town's tax
Collection process.
collection process,
Collection dates, no,
collection dates.
or twice a year.
Or
It's twice a year, fine, fair, you think?
twice a year.
Be a huge help. So.
Oh, for
As
sure.
long as it's not July and, you know.
July and August.
Yeah, it's a lot. No,
The
because-
budget committee recommends that the select board issue a request to the county commissioners that they change the way that county taxes are paid from a single lump sum payment to either following our town's tax collection dates or twice a year.
In 6 month increments.
Yeah, that's just.
Or in
Give
six
them a
months,
choice.
or in 6 month increments. Okay. You want me to?
That means-
So moved.
Unless you wanna do that, want me to do that, I can't type quite as fast as you. I don't think.
I wish I had taken typing when I was in school.
I did get it pushed down hard.
Okay.
Oh, you had to slap it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
There you go. Now you get something to work with.
right? Bryce, would you see to it that this is on the agenda for the next?
Yeah, yep.
I'm not gonna be present, so, it's
I am
gonna
not.
be a
gonna be
split,
touching
what the intent is, so they're gonna, will,
Mhm.
Okay,
you know, they.
is the, will the roads committee be visiting with the select board at the next meeting, or is that the presentation that's more likely to be at the
Town meeting.
at the town meeting?
Was that a motion to adjourn you had, or?
That's what I-
Yeah.
Is everybody-
No, I just want to, I didn't know.
I
You
think-
had on- I was
think
like, I
it's all
gotta.
during a work
I just sent that motion. Right now. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Did that get covered? Motion adjourned?
No, I don't think, did it? That's what I'm asking.
Second, all in favor?
Okay.
All right.